So I want to welcome you all to our Grassroots Impact Eugene Activist Connection event. Hopefully you guys have had a chance to get some food and get started connecting with other activists. There's a lot of awesome people here. Thank you all for coming. So Grassroots Impact is a statewide organization that is designed to connect progressive groups all across the state. So Grassroots Impact came about last year when we realized that we just don't have the relationships built outside of our cities, outside of our counties, in order to make progress on all the issues that we need to fight for across the state. So we created Grassroots Impact, that activist connection events specifically rotate around the state, designed to bring activists from one area into another area so we can expand those relationships and figure out what's going on in this area. How can we help that area? This is our seventh one. So, we've done Lebanon, Redmond, Medford, Portland, Astoria, and the Dalles. And so now we're here in Eugene. I'm glad we finally made it to my hometown. And we're excited. So one of the things, just a little bit of a background, but one of the things, our last one was at the Dalles, up in the Dalles. And one of the things that we found out that we would have had no idea if we hadn't been doing this was that they have a detention facility up there called Norcor that has, it's housing immigrants against state policy. They're using state funds to house immigrants. So we've been making a big stink about that. There's a group up there that's working on making this known. Did you have a question?
Is that housing or incarceration?
Incarceration, yeah. So people have been protesting up there. The day of our event, we went up there and we demonstrated before the event, and then we had them come speak at our event. We've passed a number of resolutions since then across a number of the Democratic Party counties in support of that, in support of stronger regulations, an oversight board, so that this type of thing can't happen. So we're already making some good progress. Glad to have you guys here. We have a number of speakers today from grassroots groups in this area. We also have a couple of people from out of the area, and we're going to start, is Leah?
Hi, I didn't expect to speak today. I just came down to talk to a few people who I already knew about things that we have in the works. So I'm not sure if you guys are familiar, but there is a website called pdpo.org. It's the Progressive Democratic PAC of Oregon. And it's just a group of progressives kind of hoping to take progressive values and then roll those into the Democratic Party of Oregon. So talking about changes we need to make to bylaws to make it more of a bottom-up organization, just things that most people who want progressive change and progressive policies that I think we're all fighting for would need to do to make an organization more responsive to its membership. The other thing that we had talked about with that organization is sort of a general progressive campaign committee. And I've gotten involved in recruiting people and talking to other progressive organizations about this and gotten a lot of positive feedback. So we're in the process now of rolling this out, and what it's going to look like, or at least my vision of it, is that we have connections with progressive groups, sort of like what Grassroots Impact is doing, except that we're doing it on a legislative level, where we can talk to each other, we can all sort of get together to suggest candidates. We have a forum whereby we can get an audience for those candidates with our progressive groups, hopefully do some fundraising, although that's probably going to be a separate section of the PDPO, and then actually get some electoral wins on the board. So we're all doing all this amazing work, we're fighting for our causes, but if we don't get our candidates and people who support those causes elected in our cities, in our counties, in our state, we are not going to see the changes that we need to see. So part of our work has to be to get people who believe in our issues elected, and I would sort of like to start a group. I'm in the process of starting a group that'll just be a clearinghouse for our progressive candidates and giving them a network to fundraise and to reach out to other progressive groups to get their message out there. I don't know how it's going to look exactly. My long-term vision is that we have a group of people from this organization in every single House district in our state, and they do research on their elected officials. We get to know our elected representatives and our elected senators. We examine their votes. We have a group of people dedicated to researching their campaign contributions and how do those campaign contributions affect their votes, if so. And then we do outreach where we have a legislative scorecard. We do a little bit of civics education in whatever House races and Senate races and county races and city races we pick. We have a group of progressives that can go drop off a scorecard. This is how your elected representative has voted. That's how it affects you in your everyday life. And we have a network of people that can make phone calls, who can advocate, who can knock on doors, who can go to community meetings and give a pitch for that candidate, so that we can actually mount a progressive challenge to entrenched politicians and change the way that our electoral system functions in this state. And I think we have a strong enough group of progressives. The work that we've all done to network with each other, we need to take that now to the next level and get people elected that are going to fight for our issues. So if you're interested, pdpo.org, and there it will ask you which committees you'd like to be on. If you just check the campaign committee, I will reach out to you personally, and we can have a phone call and talk about what your interests are, and go from there. And you'll hear more about this, I'm sure, over the coming year, but we're just starting to roll it out now. So.
You have a question?
Yeah, we got a lot of different activist organizations here. Are they involved, are they engaged in picking out their best spokespeople to run for office?
Right, so I don't know the answer to that because I'm not associated with all of them, but certainly what I would like to see is that we're all thinking of that when we meet people, when we're talking, when we're going to meetings. You know, I think we all know what that feels like when you find someone like James who would be a great candidate. And I would like to have an organization whereby you have someone you can call and say, hey, I just met this person. I'm not sure if they're interested in running for office, but they should. And then we have a group of people that can reach out and say, hey, you know, what are your issues? You know, what are your qualifications? And let's recruit people. I believe pretty strongly that we need to have people running for office who don't want to run for office. You know, people who want to run for office often want to do it for the prestige or the power or whatever. People who don't want to run for office can be talked into it because it's the right thing to do and because they can make a difference in their communities. And we all know people that would be good in office, a lot better than a lot of the people we already have. And if we can all be thinking of that and pushing people towards that, I think we can make a pretty big difference in how our state is run. So, yeah.
I'm going to ask you what the platform is of your organization, because Bernie Sanders showed for the first time in my lifetime that a presidential candidate can actually win on a single issue, and that turned out to be not anti-war or things of the past, but
Money
economic, inequality.
Yep, and which is tied to money and politics. So that's an excellent question, and the answer to your question is we obviously have to have some sort of endorsement process and some sort of platform that they follow. The PDPO is a democratically run organization, so the membership votes. So the plan is that we are having a general membership meeting to elect a chair of this campaign committee. I'm going to run for it, but whoever gets it should, they're all going to have great ideas, so it doesn't really matter. And then once we have that campaign committee set up, those are exactly the items that are going to be on the agenda. I believe pretty strongly that economic populist message is the way that we need to win, and that needs to be a focus, a living wage, addressing income inequality, addressing money in politics. And then we have to have a conversation about how much of that platform, of Bernie's platform, is a requirement, and how much of Bernie's platform is we would like it, but it's not a requirement. This is basically, if you aren't familiar with Justice Democrats, it's basically like a Justice Democrats type thing, except that it's on a state level. So Justice Democrats is running people on a Bernie platform, taking no large dollar donations, and running against Congress people and senators, and they have candidates announced. This would be sort of a Justice Democrats, we can run people against Republicans, but we can also run our progressives against entrenched Democrats that aren't serving the interests of Democrats across the state. So, and I would like us to flex our progressive muscles a little bit. We have worked hard to get a coalition of people that are on the same page. And now I think it's healthy in a democracy for our elected officials to be a little bit scared of us. And that's what we need to do. So, yeah. So it's pdpo.org, so Progressive Democratic PAC of Oregon. Again, the conversation to this gentleman's point of, how do you work with financing progressive candidates when our big issue is money in politics? We need to have a discussion about that. Where do we take money from? How much money do we take? That kind of stuff. For now, we're sticking with the maximum allowable individual contribution, which is $2,700 a person. But I'm uncomfortable with money in politics, but the reality is if we want to win, we're going to have to generate enough money to run a viable campaign. And we can have a conversation with our membership about how we accomplish that in a transparent way that serves our interests and allows for us to run candidates that we would all want to support.
One of the advantages of working with activist groups is that you guys can table, you can canvass, you can do phone banking for your own candidates, and then let them know while you're doing that the issues and the fact that they're not taking campaign contributions. Bernie showed us that we can overcome a great deal of the economic disadvantage of not having big money contributors by having activist groups who are engaged in political process.
So I have to speak a little bit to that. So a lot of activist groups have your status doesn't allow you to do political campaigning. So a lot of this is going to be networking with people on my name is Leah, your name is, whoever you are, and we are talking about this as people, not through the organization. Most of the organizations represented here are probably not going to, by law, it would interfere with their tax status to actually campaign. That is why we'd like to have an affiliate organization such that that when we have vetted candidates, that they are what you would accept, and we will be very transparent about what kind of candidates that we are going to back. These are the things that that these candidates are going to be for, and then if there's other issues that you feel strongly about that are not on that list, then we will give you the access to get their phone number to call them up and see how they feel about your particular issue. But we need to sort of have a coordinated campaign with a lot of our progressive groups, because that's how we amplify our voices to win in the halls of power. So, does anybody else have any questions? Yes?
Specifically with the Green Party, we are against counting money in politics. So any candidate that comes along that is going to be taking corporate money at all is not going to have the support of the Green Party. And that is why, I bring this up because it's very, very important for people to realize. I ran for city council in Santa Monica, California as a Green last year. And I was told over and over and over and over and over again, oh, you're never going to get anywhere because the Democrats get all the money. Well, we have to change that dialogue, we have to change that standard. And so when we're binding together as progressive organizations, we really have to have those core principles in mind. I always refer people back to the pillars of the Green Party, which are all pretty much based in Bernie.
Yep.
Crazy about a whole lot of them. So that's the main reason why I can't just rah-rah or go for it. I got an Our Revolution tip to the hat when I was running there, and I was a Bernie candidate when I was running there, but there were very big differences when it came down to the actual bottom line of who we're putting in office, how we got them there.
Yeah.
And so I think that just really needs to be said.
Yeah, so I agree with all of that. So I think myself and a vast majority of the people who are involved with PDPO, if you asked us, do we want to have Green Party candidates, Working Families Party? My ultimate dream goal, and I can't speak for everyone, but a lot of people I know, because we've talked about this, my goal would be if the Working Families Party or the Green Party has a great candidate, we don't even run a Democrat, we support them. So here's the problem with that though. We have to change the system, and right now in the system, it's just ballot access wise, name recognition wise, it's easier to run a Democrat, but what we need to do is stop with we're just backing them because they have a D behind their name. We need to run Democrats and actually bring the party back to what Democratic values are, which are Green Party values, which are Working Families Party values, which are Bernie's values. So that is the goal of this, would be, probably I don't know, and again, it's all in flux, I don't want to speak for them, but what I would say to you as a Green Party candidate is if you're a great candidate for that area, change your registration to Democrat and let all of us progressives back you, and who cares? You know,
He's trying to get Bernie to do that, right?
I know, but you know what? If we can do it locally, maybe he will do it too. So I mean, I think this is building. You know, we are building our own party in essence, right? A progressive party. And so I do agree with you 100%. I think most of us are not on board anymore with just supporting a person because they have a D behind their name. But at some point, we're going to have to get buy-in from Greens and working families. And if we want to do it behind them, that's great. But me personally, I've looked into the difficulty of it. It's already hard enough for us to get, as progressives, fight big money, overcome those institutional obstacles to getting grassroots candidates to run. And if you throw it in as running on a third-party ticket as well, to me, I would just rather win with use the Democratic Party as a vehicle to get what we need as far as progressives. And then if we want to run third-party candidates, then we will have the levers of power, so we could just do that, can't we? So, yeah. Yeah, that's an excellent question, and this is my philosophy and the way because I've talked to a lot of people about this. So I think there are actually Jen McKinney, I don't know where she is, but she would probably know better than I do. There are people that haven't taken corporate money, right? Yeah, there's plenty of people that haven't taken corporate money. We just don't hear about them. They're not very vocal. So, and I actually have talked to, without dropping names, I have talked to elected officials, unelected official that I can confirm is on board with this. There are people that want to change the system, and the system is oppressive. So if we give them the grassroots power to do that, there are people that will come on board. And you're right, that's the Democratic Party. If you go out into progressive groups, there are a decent percentage of people that are going to say, oh, Democrats, no, I'm never going to support them. And it's because they do this stuff. They take corporate money. They're not fighting for the things that progressives want. I totally hear where you're coming from. If it were possible, and I hope it is someday, if it were possible to run a Green Party candidate or a Working Families Party candidate and have the same chances of winning as you would if you had a D behind your name, we do, of course we do, absolutely we do. That's unquestionable that we need a new party, but until we have that, how are we going to get power to be able to make that happen? Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
I've seen a lot of elections recently, like one District 34 where we're from, where there was 23 candidates. A lot of them had D's next to their name.
Yeah.
And, they were no more successful than the other ones because there was always that one Democrat who took the corporate money.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's our job, right, is this progressive group to educate people about what that means. And I don't know, we can have a discussion about it.
They are no more successful than the Green Party. In fact, the majority of those Democrats are much less successful than the Green Party.
So I'm perfectly open to saying if you do the demographic research, I can't speak for this as a group thing, and we can have this discussion. If you want to have the discussion, join the group. Those voices need to be heard. But here's the deal.
I just asked my Green Party candidates to turn to Democrats, so I have a feeling that we're not really on the same page.
If you're totally opposed to that, then maybe what we have. So I can't speak for people. Is it possible that this group, this PDPO progressive group, would say in this race we're endorsing a Green Party candidate? I suppose, yeah. I mean, I can't speak for the group. We're setting this up. If you strongly feel that in a certain race that the Green Party candidate has just as good of a chance as whatever Democrat runs, I don't think we get much pushback on that. If we're talking about big statewide races, it's going to be harder. Yeah, so then...
I'd like to get Annie's question.
Last question for Bernadette.
I was just going to say maybe put the Green Party on the agenda for a short presentation rather than having this debate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with all of the Green Party's values. I mean, I'm not.
There's
So.
a lot of effort right now. Everybody wants everybody to get together and come under their umbrella.
Yeah.
And the Green Party's doing that too. It's like, well, we're already on the ballot in most of the states. We come under our umbrella.
Yeah.
So maybe we can be on the agenda and just do a short.
Yeah.
I'm planning to mention the tables and they want to say something.
Yeah, I'm definitely not trying to be antagonistic, and there's a way to talk about like supporting your candidates. I hear where you're coming from. All your points are valid and legit, and there's no way for me to argue a lot of those because I don't know what the right way is. I don't know if the Democratic Party is salvageable. I don't know if we can get what we want through there. And I agree that we need third parties. So how do we do that? I don't know. So, yeah.
Hey guys, I'm Annie Naranjo Rivera, and I'm the President of Grassroots IMPACT. Thanks, James. So I had my hand up for Leah because I don't know if you all know this, but Grassroots IMPACT is actually nonpartisan or transpartisan. So first of all, show of hands, who was involved in the Bernie campaign that's here? Awesome. Who was a Bernie delegate or was in Philadelphia? All right. Now, okay, this is going to get a little emotional perhaps for some of us. Who Dem exited after the results of what happened in the... Okay. Hands down. And who Dem entered after the 2016 election? Okay, so we've got lots of folks that are pushing from lots of different angles. But one thing that I think we can all agree on is we need some massive change. Grassroots IMPACT is an organization that was started by Bernie delegates, and a lot of us were in battle in Philadelphia together, and beforehand, as we all know what happened during Bernie's campaign around the country with big media, etc. So we know firsthand just how much work there is to be done. Now, okay, raise your hand if before the Bernie campaign you were involved in fighting for economic, racial, social, or environmental justice in some way with some organization. Is that 100% of the people that are here? I think it's safe to say that we are justice warriors, and we're coming from different angles, but when we're together, like we are right now, we can fight together. So we can accomplish these goals if we stick together. We don't have to agree 100% on the strategy, but what we do agree on is that we need to see these things happen. We need to fight for the people that don't have working jobs. They don't have work, they don't have a living wage. We need to fight for people who don't have health care. We need to fight for people who are going to be kicked off health care with pre-existing conditions. We need to fight for, I'm sure you all heard about what happened last night with the case of the black man who was murdered at a traffic stop. Black Lives Matter. We need to fight for racial justice, right? And the environment, boy, I would sure like to have a world to pass down to my children who are here running around out there in the field. We're facing extinction here on planet Earth. Kind of important issue, right? So from all the angles that we're working, keep doing it. That's why we're here. We do these activist connection events to bring people together. What's happened on the left is that we've been fragmented. So we've had silos. You know, I'm working on no LNG where I live. I don't know if you guys have heard about that, liquefied natural gas. It took 10 years replacing the county commissioners and all kinds of fight on the ground to make sure that we beat the LNG terminal in Astoria, which is in my House District 32. Now, they're proposing a terminal south, on the south coast, okay, the Jordan Cove. That is a battle that's going to take all of us to fight and win together. Yep. If we have one group that's fighting on it and none of the rest of us know, because I'm working on the river in my community and I'm working on the wetlands in my community, but I'm not aware of the other things that are going on around me and connecting with the other activists, then, you know, we lose a lot of our strength that way. So to bring everyone together in connection is our goal. Now, I've been traveling a lot around the state and the nation, and I have to tell you something really exciting. I've been told by people whose job it is to study these things, and just by activists from around the country and the state, that what we're doing is unique. Oregon is doing something that a lot of other states aren't doing yet, which is this, bringing people together to talk and coordinate our efforts. That isn't happening yet in a lot of places. People are just starting to figure it out. Oh, hey, it's kind of important, the intersectionality. If, you know, we fight for environmental issues, it's gonna affect our working class communities. It's gonna affect places where there are higher concentrations of people of color, right? It's all connected. So we really need to bring ourselves together under these umbrellas, and I'm so happy that you're all here. We've done, I think, James, have we done 8 of these?
This is number 7.
7, okay. So we've done them all across state, from the east to the south, and we're going to keep doing them. Bring yourself, if you're able, to another one and let other folks from another nearby area know what you're working on, because there might just be somebody like you working on something similar, and we can share our resources and pool our ideas. So that's pretty much all I want to say about Grassroots Impact. We're doing this collaborative work. We also have a vision similar to what Leah was talking about, but it involves all of the parties, and it involves probably a multiple party system. So Jacob, back there, if you raise your hand, he's in charge of our political coordinating campaign. And I'll give you an example from Astoria, once again, my neck of the woods. We actually live in Tillamook County, but up in Clatsop County this recent election, Grassroots Impact said, we're going to pilot this program. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, it's special district election time. And we want to run candidates for these, we want to run progressives. Not the co-opted version of the word progressive. Actual progressives who are going to fight for these issues that affect us and our lives. How are we going to do this? We've got Democrats, we've got Green Party folks, we've got working families. We didn't have any socialists, but let's say we did. There's a Progressive Party person that wanted to run. So we got everyone together, sat around the table, and you know what? They decided who to run where, and they coordinated. Has that happened before there? No. This is the first time that happened, and yeah, let's check it out. We need to see that in every county, because you know what? We don't win if we run a Democrat and a Green Party person for the same position, split the progressive vote, and neither person wins, and we get some terrible person in office. And we don't just win by clobbering one party with our bigger party because we have more dollars or we have more resources, etc. So that's exactly what needs to happen. And you know, they were successful. We didn't win all the races, but we won a lot. And that communication is the start of the path. So thanks for being here, whatever angle you're from. And hopefully we can keep working towards justice. So thanks.
All right, is everybody ready to hear about from Chris McAllister? He is from the Lane County Poverty and Homelessness Board.
Thank you, Grassroots Impact, and everybody for being here. My name's Chris McAllister, and before I get into what I'm working on, I just wanted to share a quote from an activist from way back. As a person with disabilities, I'm really inspired by this piece from Ms. Helen Keller. Okay. So I want to say to those who are trying to learn to speak and those who are teaching them, be of good cheer. Do not think of today's failures, but of the success that may come tomorrow. You have set yourselves a difficult task, but you will succeed if you persevere, and you will find a joy in overcoming obstacles, a delight in climbing rugged paths, which you would not perhaps have known if you did not sometimes slip backwards, if the road was always smooth and pleasant. Remember that no effort that we make to attain something beautiful is ever lost. Sometime, somewhere, somehow, we shall find that what we seek is what we find. We shall speak, yes, and we shall sing too. So that was with Helen Keller. Now, people may wonder, why is Chris from the Lane County Poverty and Homelessness Board up here speaking? That's not a grassroots group. That's a government entity. That's a service entity. That's farthest thing from here. Well, I'm here as a consumer. I'm on the consumer seat. I spent 8 years on the streets in Springfield, Eugene, from the ages of 13 to 22. I was on medications. I was abused. I had to go through almost everything that we think of when we think of the tragic and trauma items that focus on our homeless communities, on our poor communities, ones that slip back and forward. So with that being said, I stood up when I saw a county appointment available. I gave my case, and the county appointed me to be a speaker to represent homeless or formerly homeless on the board, so that they can hold the government accountable, so that we could speak to the service providers and give a voice. And so I've only been on for a year this month, yet we have been able to do quite a bit, and we are by no means finished. But that being said, we have a couple of items that are moving forward. One being Operation 600. Has anybody here heard of Operation 600? One person. Well, good. This is a great opportunity. So our strategic plan for the Poverty and Homeless Board, which consists of the Springfield government, the Eugene government, Lane County government, Veneta government, and a coalition of service providers from Catholic Community Services, Looking Glass, St. Vincent de Paul, people who want to serve, as well as representatives from Opportunity Village, Cornerstone, sponsors. We have a wide coalition and we're looking to expand. So one of the items that the Poverty and Homeless Board does is they oversee the county budget regarding homeless works, and they also oversee some of the human services monies, and they also coordinate. Now we have work groups. Work groups are items that entities that work on some of the items that we're moving forward. One of those items that we're moving forward is Operation 600, which is the goal by 2021 to have 600 year-round shelter beds and emergency shelter beds for people in Lane County. Low barrier, which is very important. We have people who are sick, who are on medications, who are mentally ill, who have criminal records. We need to house everybody. And we also need to provide systems and support networks for those who are poor or on borderline homelessness, paycheck to paycheck. And one of the ways that I wanted to share the voice for homelessness is to create a work group. And we are in the process of starting a work group that's consisting of predominantly, and by predominantly I'm saying 95% homeless persons on this board, to be able to be a think tank for our county, for our cities, to be able to look at the items that are moving forward and see if they actually reach the populations that they're trying to reach. Because a lot of times we feel like our system's out of touch, and for the most part it is. But how do we get involved? We have to be able to not only be a voice, but we also have to leave a voice for others. And so I encourage people to get involved by learning more. We have poverty and homeless meetings once a month, every other month, and I can post the calendar online if you'd like. But they're free. They're a way for people who are working in the communities to come speak to government entities and service peoples and people like myself who want to go and be a voice to actually do something, to have benchmarks and to meet those benchmarks. I have a piece of paper here. I have another one, and I can get more copies of some of the activities that this Poverty and Homeless Board has done in the last year, because we are an action group. We just need to have the pieces directed by people who know better. And that's why I come as an advocate, but also as an activist, to reach out to you all and say, help us help everybody. So I appreciate your time, and I appreciate that all of what you guys do, because you wouldn't be here if you weren't doers. Thank you.
That's the only welfare there is. The state offers no welfare. The counties offer no welfare. There is no money in the pockets of 19,000 people in Lane County. It's a severe problem that people just wish would go away, but they're not doing anything about it.
Yes, sir. Well, in order to respond to that, I thank you for your information. And I know that it's hard to qualify and quantify a lot of the data. And I know that not everybody has the same kind of benchmarks. A lot of our information comes from HUD, comes from those who serve the people from the ground level. And so while we may not get the info disseminated in ways that are helpful to everybody at this current point, I know that we are certainly open to hearing more statistics. And if you reach out to me, I'll make sure that those numbers at least get to the county people. Now, I'm in a representative mode. I'm appointed, so I'm the only person on the board who's not paid to be there. So I don't have a government job there. I am here for the people. So, but in order to do that, we need more people to show up to the work groups, the work sessions. We're talking about starting a poverty work group, but we have to figure out what can we do. Having a group that meets doesn't necessarily lead to action. So we have to have a plan, we have to have a concept, and we have to have data. So participation is key. So thank you for your part, and feel free to be in touch. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
Hi, Chris. Sure. And I'm working in neighborhoods and work with disabled individuals and caregivers,
Yes, ma'am.
children and families. And we'd really love to start coming to your meetings. So if you could, do you have a regular time, or are they scheduled for time that you can tell us now, or can we catch you after?
Well, I can tell you real quickly. We are now on our next meeting, which will be in July. Will be our third meeting of our new system. In order to actually make Operation 600 a reality, we found that we had to kind of refocus our time and our efforts. And so we have a general meeting every other month, and then we have an executive meeting in between. And so when the general meetings meet, it is at 12 p.m. at John Serbu, which is the youth incarceration facility. But the county owns it, and they have meeting rooms there, and it's able to be open access for us. But it's from 12 to 1:30 on the third Thursday, usually, of the month. Now, it's interchanging. In August, we don't meet because that's when a lot of the entities take their vacation time. But we do have a mailing list. We do have a website, and so I can get those details to you afterwards if you'd like.
Okay, yes, please do.
Any other questions?
This is the point of ace.
Very good. So Operation 600 is to get 600 beds, but I often hear people say, we have a lot more than 600, so why 600? We have a lot more than 600 homeless, so why is it Operation 600?
Well, great question, James. Thank you. You like to throw me the hard one. That's why I'm here. So with that being said, 600 was an incremental step. We would be foolish if we said that 1,000 beds would be enough. We don't even necessarily have wraparound services for those 600, but this is an inclusive effort. We have brought mental health on board. We have brought Lane County Community Healthcare Centers on board. We have a lot of the groups that are actually working to serve. And so we don't want to have people put into a place that they're going to lose next week. We don't want people to be put in a place that they're going to lose in 9 months. We want people to have success. We want people to be able to be anchored and move forward. And so in order to be able to justify asking for more monies from bigger cities, Portland is the 19th biggest city in the country, and they are where a lot of the monies go, a lot of focuses go. We're in Lane County. We don't have a whole lot since logging and other things have changed the funding mechanisms of our county governments. So we've had to actually rely a lot more on federal funding and on grassroots efforts to overcome things. And so this was an attempt at a more comprehensive package, and if it's successful, we can continue to build. Low barrier shelters, 90% of our shelters locally are not low barrier. There's something, whether it's alcohol, whether it's mental illness, whether it's criminal record, you can't necessarily get your shelter. And so this was something that we felt was a little bit more controllable. Right now we're already got 50 units being built by the Lane County Behavioral Health Center so that people can get on-site casework. So one of the biggest things is slipping back. You miss 1 month of your meds, you might be on the streets again. And so this was an attempt to be holistic and to be personal driven too. And so it also is able to be broken up into small bits. So if a group wants to open up 50 beds here for a group that's underserved, you want to open up 100 beds over here for a group that's underserved, we can possibly start to get at the bigger picture. We've also started to focus on efforts like FUSE, so frequent users of the systems who may in time use a lot more monies that could have been distributed through multiple more people. So we're trying to make sure that we're being more efficient in our services so that we're not having to spend a lot of monies and denying more people opportunity as well. So trying to be economically responsible as well as socially justice oriented. So sorry for the long answer for your question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Instead of taking a break yet, we're going to have True Matson come up and speak for Oregon CareWorks, and then we'll take a short break after that.
Hi, everybody. My name is True Matson. I'm here today with my husband and best friend of 30 years, Rick. I wasn't expecting to speak today, so I'm going to use a cheat sheet. I'm here today to tell a healthcare story. It's our story, but it's also just a variation of the same story lived by millions of Americans, including thousands of Oregonians every single year. Long ago, Rick and I met, fell instantly and madly in love, married, had a family, and worked hard to build a happy and solid life together. In 1988, a retired attorney drove through a building, striking my husband. My husband had to undergo brain surgery to place a ventricle periodontal shunt that he will need for the rest of his life. The moment that the neurosurgeon placed that shunt, my husband, Rick, at the age of 34, became uninsurable. All of the settlement funds we received went to pay for my husband's care and lengthy rehabilitation, as he suffered a major stroke during the surgery that left him paralyzed on his left and dominant side. He worked incredibly hard and regained most of his lost function. He refused disability, and instead, nearly 2 years later, he was working full-time. Life went on. We were happy, but we knew that we were vulnerable now because we were unable to buy life, health, or disability insurance for Rick due to his previous injury. In 2000, we had our wonderful son, Blake. Rick bought a small Ocean View 4-chair barbershop and built it into a thriving business. He was active in the community, always willing to lend a hand. During those years, we were living well below our means and saving everything we could. A decade ago, the uninsured crisis got so bad that even with cash in hand, most specialists refused uninsured patients. So, when Rick began having episodes of racing heart and chest pain, his GP did everything he could to help. After 3 months of testing were inconclusive, Dr. Bonet went to the extraordinary step of calling in a favor owed him on Rick's behalf and secured Rick an appointment with a cardiologist. We happily agreed to prepay $3,200 due upon sign-in at the first visit. We were both relieved and grateful for the appointment scheduled for April 27th, 2007 at 3:40. On the morning of April 27th, 2007, at approximately 10:30 a.m., while in his shop cutting a client's hair, Rick suffered a sudden, massive atrial fibrillation from undiagnosed pulmonary hypertension that caused a simultaneous massive stroke, which left him blind with middle stage early onset dementia and requiring round-the-clock nursing home level care. He was 54 years old. Our family was forever altered. A single prescription that cost just $4 a month would have prevented Rick's disability. I have been his full-time caregiver since then. Juggling child-rearing, full-time caregiving, and earning a living is incredibly difficult. When Rick's brain injury struck, we owned a successful small business, our own home, and a rental property. Despite those advantages, we lost all of our assets as I struggled to locate and access care and resource options. I searched in vain for the help that I expected to be there waiting. Like any of you here today who have ever attempted to find needed services for a loved one, I learned the hard truth. There are far too few resources that are too hard to qualify for, serving too few people. Waiting lists are sometimes years long, and all of these programs are constantly under threat of funding cuts or outright program termination. By the 5th year of our new normal, we were flat broke. I lived in a state of constant dread. All of our assets went to pay for surgeries, hospitalizations, medications, and living expenses. Through those years, people most often spoke to Rick through me as though he were invisible. Friends disappeared, overwhelmed by Rick's level of disability and unable to connect with their friend who could not remember them. We felt isolated and very alone until joining Oregon CareWorks last year. We're a newly formed group bringing together the aged, disabled, and care providers, friends, and family to create a community of our own. Too many dedicated caregivers live below the poverty line. Too many hardworking families find themselves unable to afford the type of care a loved one needs when catastrophic illness strikes. And too many workplaces penalize family caregivers with less pay and fewer opportunities for advancement. And all too often, and perhaps most tragically, our elderly or disabled feel like burdens to the families who love and need them. Oregon CareWorks wants to change that. This is what I have learned on this journey. Individuals do not become disabled. Families do. We all grieve the loss of our old lives, our old abilities, our old selves. But somewhere along the way comes acceptance, peace, and joy for the accomplishments gained through hard work and perseverance. Today, I feel incredibly blessed to be able to care for Rick as a full-time paid caregiver through Oregon's Independent Choices program. But I still live in fear because this program and others like it are in immediate danger. At a time when the need for long-term care options for the aged, ill, and disabled is growing, our options here in Oregon are shrinking due to budget constraints. As we all know, Oregon is facing a $2 billion budget shortfall. We have to find new ways to raise revenue and balance our budget. Everything is on the chopping block, including funding for Medicaid home-based community care service programs like the one that Rick is in. We should be proud that our state has taken the lead in creating these programs that empower Oregon's disabled with choices in their own care. These programs are financially advantageous, costing the state, on average, a full 30% less than comparable inpatient nursing home care. If these programs are eliminated, our families will suffer. People will die. Those requiring the most care will be forced into nursing homes at a greater cost to Oregon citizens. The elderly and the disabled deserve the dignity of choices. That is what Oregon CareWorks is about. Caregivers and the people they serve share a unique relationship. Alone, we are isolated, often overwhelmed, and uninformed of our options. Together, we are united, empowered, and able, each in our own way, to make lives better for all of Oregon's families. That is why Rick and I stand before you today sharing our family's healthcare story in the hope that you will join us by supporting policies, programs, and revenue sources that provide access to affordable, quality care and choice for the most vulnerable among us. Please join us, join CareWorks. And everybody, I want to ask that you join us this Wednesday. The state legislator is getting a lot of pushback from big corporations against raising the corporate tax rate in the state. If we don't do this, children who have special needs are going to lose speech therapy in schools. Elderly people are going to lose care. Disabled people like my husband are going to be forced into nursing homes. And it's pretty catastrophic, as we all know, all the way around the board. So we can do what we can here in our state to fill the gaps of what's going on federally right now. So we have a rally at noon at Johnson Hall at U of O, the corner of 13th and Kincaid, Wednesday, June 21st. And we're rallying to ask them to stand with the citizens and not with the corporations and raise taxes on them. So that's it. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Phil Carrasco, he's going to make his way over here to the mic, and we're going to get back on track.
So thank you all for being here and just allowing me to speak a little bit about what's going on. You know, we're touching on a lot of justices, right? Not the Supreme Court justice, not yet. But, you know, racial justice, environmental justice, social justice in general. And a lot of these intersect, and we understand. We've got a lot of language. I think we've been educated a lot on these issues so far. The question is, are we using this education to inform us on the type of activism we do, the type of policies we try to adopt here at the state, county, national level? Are we using that education as well to be better allies, better advocates for folks that are going through these type of oppressive structures? So a brief rundown. I mean, you all heard at the national level what happened with the recent decision for Philando Castile, his murderer. Nobody was surprised. I mean, you could have a video of it happening, him saying the N-word, him saying, I know you don't have a gun or you're not going to shoot me with it, but I'm still going to kill you. I mean, you could create any outrageous scenario and they're still not going to acquit the white power structure that is the police department, right? That's protected to serve, not us, right? So we see that happening at the national level. We also see a Congress ready to pass an Affordable Health Care Act without any real public input, right? They don't care about what even Democrats have to say, not even the centrist Democrats, right? And we know that it's going to oppress a lot of folks, you know, folks aging out and going into retirement. It's going to affect a lot of us, people of color, trying to, have better health care. One quick note to make is that a lot of these decisions do make a lot of make sense for these Republicans. Why? It makes a lot of sense that they do it. We think, hey, why are you not listening to us? We don't understand. Well, the average income of a Trump voter was 71 to 72K. I don't make that, right? I don't make that at all. So odds are I wasn't going to vote for somebody like Trump, right? If I just go through the economic piece. So a lot of these folks that are making 72K, they're either recently middle income, right? Or they have just been there at 72K, being able to buy their home and making this kind of money. So all of a sudden they feel, hey, I did the hard work of getting here. Why can't everybody else do it? They're draining us. So the Affordable Health Care Act is there to cater to people making 72K and above. Just something to think about, right? Should we talk about DeVos as well, right? Public schools being defunded and, her vision of making money, not creating equity for students or educators. This is largely anti-union, anti-labor, right? We know that. Also, now going down to more local levels, at the Oregon level, there's an initiative petition, IP22, that is looking to repeal Oregon State Statute 182A820, which, 181A820, which currently is asking law enforcement not to cooperate with Immigration Customs Enforcement when looking to deport folks, right? They can only cooperate if they actually see a warrant, right, for the person, the name of the person, signed by a federal judge. Now, IP22 stands to repeal that. It's a 30-year-old state statute, and they're trying to repeal it. So IP22, this is mostly Oregonians for Immigration Reform. And sadly, another Latino, which is called Sal Esquivel, down in Southern Oregon. Just disgusting, right? When his own parents were immigrants, right? And what are these Oregonians for Immigration Reform has also done? They've attracted folks that have infiltrated environmental groups, right? Because they've really latched onto this idea, an idea that I went through the 3 p.m. program. I buy into this idea that we should prevent urban sprawl and create urban density. I'm down for that. But white supremacists have come in and hooked onto that idea to dissuade more folks from being accepted into these counties and cities, right? They say, we need to prevent. There's just so many people here. Stop coming to Oregon and living here. Guess who's not allowed to come here, right? People of color. So then they use the immigration side. So it's something just to be wary of, right? Of who we're inviting into our circles. Next, at the county level, this is a story. County inclusion. We've been looking for the inclusivity ordinance. Sorry, man, I keep messing with this thing. I'll just yell. Yeah, right? I don't even know how loud it is. So, okay, sorry about that. So, at the county level, just like we did at the city level, and a lot of you were out there in support of, we've been trying to pass what's, in layman's term is called, sanctuary ordinances, right? Where, again, we're trying to mimic Oregon State Statute 181.820, where, the law that's being applied to law enforcement not to cooperate with Immigration Customs Enforcement should be a law that exists for city employees, or, in this case, county employees. Now, just the privilege just abounds the way it's been playing out. I gave them two options. I was really hoping that they'd pass an ordinance, and then I presented to them also a resolution. I go, if this is too much for you, largely Republican, county commissioners, here's a resolution, right? So I was playing hardball and softball at the same time. December 8th, that was in Commissioner Farr's lap. and Pete Sorensen. And Pete Sorensen, unfortunately, we all know the rest of the county commissioners are like, yeah, whatever you said, we're plugging our ears, right? And regardless of how much he was advocating for this, here we were in a January meeting, a month after, being told that it was going to be kicked down to an advisory board that only responds to the county administrator, that had not even met yet and wouldn't meet until February, because it was just recently, put together, for them to look at what that would even look like. An inclusion ordinance, would it be a administrative order, blah, blah, blah. So they just really opened up all these possibilities. So I have to keep playing ball. Fine, let's do it. They have their meeting in February, and it wasn't until their March meeting that they established a subcommittee of this advisory board, right? Here I am starting to drown here, right? They established this task force. The sheriff is there. Thanks. And we have other folks, good folks. I don't know how many of you may know Mo Young. She's amazing. She was there. Yeah, right? Round of applause for Mo. Greg Rickoff as well. So far, I think, he's pretty amazing, and I hear great things about him. But then there's this other gentleman just sitting there, and he kept interrupting Alicia Hayes. Alicia Hayes is a queer woman, alter-abled, and he kept interrupting her. And I was like, who's this guy? Like, who are you? Like, who invited you to this party? Eventually, my question was answered. He had been helping the county commissioners in some Lane County Parks program or community thing. But it also happens to be the Lane GOP chair in a task force designed to establish an inclusion ordinance for undocumented residents. Right? So I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, I'll accept this too, and let's keep working, right? One of the meetings, he sat there and he just kept speaking out of privilege again, right? Well, we have all these laws, HIPAA laws, blah, 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 all these laws that only people that probably work there or maybe some of us understand that they're federal laws. Fine. So they have all these protections. I get it, Wayne. I get it. However, there is another federal law that I'm trying to kind of curb its power, which is the immigration federal law, right? Federal immigration law. How is a Lane County employee supposed to move forward? Which federal law does he pay attention to mostly? I go, secondly, Wayne, I like to point out that we all here in this room, much like in this place right here, we have a lot of privileges. Somebody does us wrong? Oh, hell no, right? We've got it all down pat. We know how to access the lawyers, the nonprofits at low cost, and we could all turn out for a public comment and be pissed off, right? Let's do it. That's fun always, right? But these vulnerable communities have muted their own voice because they're in such a vulnerable position. It's not that they're not educated. It's not that they don't know how to exert agency. They take care of their family, but they're not here to make noise. So if they're wrong, they're not going to do it. So that's something Wayne needed to understand. He sits there, he looks at me, and his hands are shaking like this. His hands weren't shaking before, okay? So it's not because of his age that they were shaking. They were shaking because he was visibly pissed. So I was starting to feel good about it. However, he hits me with this comment. He says, I just want to clarify something for you, Phil. I'm proud of who I am. And he's looking me dead in the eye. I'm proud of who I am. I'm white. Everybody was like, seriously, like, boom. We just stayed there like, what's next? A Nazi salute? There you go. Yeah, an immigrant. Yeah. Colonizer, immigrant, but yeah, okay. But he said that. And I just came to finally. I was like, wow, okay. Lucky for me, I had invited Carl Segstrom, I don't know if y'all know him, from the Eugene Weekly, to be at this public meeting. So it's on record, and you'll soon see it somewhere, I'm sure. However, we need to get to a goal. We'll chill out for now, but we'll hit them when we get what we want. so he says this, and I'm sitting there, and I just come to him like, that's great, Wayne, as long as you care about every other resident in this community. I mean, that's the best I could come up with. And he goes, fair enough. And I'm like, all right, yeah, okay, whatever. So this is what I'm dealing with for an inclusion ordinance, which is a Band-Aid at what ails our country at a much, much deeper level, right? It's just a Band-Aid. I just want due process. I just want to know if a Lane County employee is like, oh, I hate immigrants, or I'm not following directions. Yeah, sure, officer. There's Miguel Mejia. Go ahead, take him. Bye. I could point to that and be like, this person was way out of line. Now this Miguel Mejia can actually sue the crap out of the county because there were some rules in place that were not followed, right? Some type of reparation for this. So it's not even massive protection for our undocumented folks. But it's something that I know Lane County government needs to be leading on, right? Last I heard, East Lane County is up, right? Something for you all to think about. And it's not just vote for those people, but actually go canvass, with them, go knock on doors, do the phone banking, just be out there, do the work to get your candidate in. And I know Springfield is almost up. Sid Lykin repeatedly told us and the whole crowd, I'd invite the crowd to read Oregon State Statute 180. I was like, bro, we all educated ourselves before we came here, right? So I'm a little more calm now, but and it was really nice for a lot of folks to show up. I don't know that maybe we broke a record. I don't know, but at the last Board of Commissioners meeting, we had 29 people show up and speak in support of an inclusion ordinance, and we had 80 people show up, right? And even better than that, as I stated in my comment, was they weren't all from South Eugene, right? Which I love South Eugene. I'm from South Eugene. This is county government, which I love. I'm from South Eugene. I love South Eugene. But we had Marcola folks, correct. People straight from No Tie. We had folks from all over the place. Yeah, Walterville, right. So, there was wide support, and we're going to continue to do that. I just met with a bunch of people, and we're drowning. And I just wrote down a few thoughts here that I'd like to share with you. This was after the meeting. I was mad. I'm glad I wrote instead of yelling. So I wrote, we go at them, but they drown us in bureaucracies. They foil attempts to exist and be out of the shadows. We're brown or black or Muslim or women of color. Just a person constantly defending our right to walk freely. To the structures that be, you say you've got processes. So I say, we have no time. We have no power. We only have community. We only have community. We have community. An impactful grassroots community. So I bring that to the powers that be in hopes of accessing their hearts and minds to make change. Be change, real change. But why is it such a huge lift for communities just left adrift, making our varied communities widen the rift? I won't stand to beg any longer. I see the need to access that power directly. I can't afford to claim others will do it for me. We will do it for ourselves. I'll run, make it happen, and do it. I'll make change, be change, real change. Our realities right now, they're killing us on the streets. Rest in peace, Philando Castile. Affecting us psychologically, emotionally, making us less socially acceptable through their policies, and muting our political voice by blocking our ascension to power, sharing the power. So every day I know that I vow to make change, be change, real change. And I'm going to put myself out there as an elected person at LCC. We made some really hard decisions $10.6 million cut, and it was not popular what we did. I am currently right now having the conversations I need to be having with folks to make those changes so we're not facing another round of budget cuts that way. We let our students down, our faculty down. And I'm a union guy, trust me. I know I let them down, and we're mending that right now. I was a student up until 2012 at LCC. I want to make an ask of you. Did you see the Ward 4 candidate interviews for the city of Eugene? You know, George Polling's vacancy. How many of you live in George Polling's ward, or used to be his ward? No, nobody? Okay. So, a very beloved woman from LCC who was affected by the budget cuts interviewed for that. It's Professor Lundquist. She is very, very much loved by folks at LCC. She's a philosophy and religion professor, and she spoke eloquently about ethics. At a time when we're talking about public trust, the money for City Hall, and the ever-present MUPTI that, you know, it ebbs and flows, we talk about it, then we let it go. Racial justice, the new hire of EPD captain, even in Springfield. The changes we want to see. I'd invite you to look into this person, and if it behooves you, just go ahead and send an email to some of the city councilors and let them know what you feel about her. Because I think we need more folks with good, sound ethics running our government, right? So there's that, and I'll close with this. There are times that I'm just flustered, and you know, I lose a little bit of focus. I know everybody goes through that, but that's when I, you know, surround myself by good people. And when James told me about this event today, you know, I knew that I needed to be around progressive voices and folks that are there all the time. I see you all the time, either at city council or somebody writing a letter to the editor. So know that I'm here to support you and to have dialogue so we can get somewhere and really start making changes. And I hope I can count on you as well. Thank you. Thank you. That was a question. So, I have a project that we're going to start and one that we're in the middle of still. So, the one that we're in the middle of is the inclusion ordinance. We still need to keep sending those. And even if you live in South Eugene, no, this is a county issue. If you look at the work I've done, is really city and county. You know, the state is great. There's a lot of great folks doing a lot of stuff, and I still support that work. But I'm very local, or as somebody over there sometimes laughs when I say it, I'm hyper local, right? Like, I really just focus on my local. I like to see the changes immediately in our face because I have a 3-year-old and an 8-year-old, and I want to see those changes. So inclusion ordinance is the one happening now. The other one is I saw the Blue-Green Alliance kind of meetings happen and then just lose a little steam. And as part of the Oregon AFL-CIO, and because of varying issues, much like even NOTA DAPL, right, Dakota Access Pipeline, we really need to come to terms and talk to each other, learn how to talk to each other. And I am ready to take on that project under the Oregon Strong Voice Lane County, which is the Blue-Green Alliance. That means, you know, you have environmentalists and blue-collar workers or labor come together and really unite and find the type of ordinances and city policies that we can adopt for the betterment of our environment. Not only the economic piece, but also continue on this trajectory of environmental justice. Any other questions? No? Hey, Lonnie. 22. Right now the campaign is for decline to sign. I know it's, some folks are not a fan of that, but what that means is we're beating them to the punch and getting all the signatures of folks declining to sign any initiative petition that's asking law enforcement, to work with Immigration Customs Enforcement, right? Carl? So 2018, I alluded a little bit to them. I know that there are folks up. One might look at, I know Clark is almost up, right? He's done a few good things here and there lately, but we need to look at everything, right? City Council, I know Zelenka's coming up, right? Yeah, so Zelenka and who else? Greg Evans. Greg Evans is up as well. So, as elected official, we need to always come to terms with what decisions we've made. And some of us have a good reason why a set of things had to happen, but some don't, right? Their values seem to shift. So it's important to continue to look at folks and talk to them about it. The county commissioner, I think it's important that we start looking at, try to recruit women of color, right, to run for some of these offices. And, just keep at it. Sorry. Thank you. So we have direct service Latino organizations, but we have advocacy and lobbying type of groups. So first I'll start with, we have Centro Latinoamericano, which is a direct service, Downtown Languages, which is a direct service. We also have Huerto de la Familia, which is a direct service. They are always in need of support, right? But for advocacy and lobbying, you have Grupo Latino de Acción Directa, which I'm happy to be backed by an amazing board. Some of you may know Carmen Urbina. Some of you may know Guadalupe Quinn, Jorge Navarro. We're talking Evangelina Sungrens. We're talking about strong Latinos in this area, right? Now, we have become the educational, we do a lot of educational forums. That's what we do all the time. We make sure that the Latinx community is very aware of what's happening politically in their environment. So moving forward from there, there is an alliance that was formed between all these groups that I just mentioned. It's called the Latinx Alliance of Lane County. Now this alliance is, we're using war terms because that's the way we see it. We're at war. And we're all independent of each other. However, we come together for specific projects. So right now we're doing something in response to the need in the Latino community, which is having emergency preparedness packets. We need to handle the deportation of a family or a member or a loved one as an emergency situation, right? Much like an earthquake, right? So the Latinx Alliance of Lane County meets every Friday at 3:30 at Centro Latinoamericano. And, they were really the backbone that really supported and continue to provide me the support for the ordinance at the Lane County level. So these are the groups that I would say. So Grupo Latino de Acción Directa, or maybe you've heard their name, GLAD, of Lane County. We educate our community on let's say, IP22, right, what that looks like. But we never try to, influence them. They'll make up their own mind. We just create the space. Then we take the information that informs the type of lobbying we need to be doing, right? And I'm in the middle of actually just establishing the first Latinx PAC here in Lane County. And this political action committee will raise funds to be able to further lobby. Not only that, but also have our Latinx candidates run for office. All this is happening at a very fast pace. We just need to keep going. I think they're very educated, hermano. I think they are very educated. What my job is to make sure that I continue the flow of information to them. They make up their own mind. A lot of us, I'd even include myself, are barely surviving, right? Living to survive. We can't try to live to thrive without having the basic things like feeling safe in this community, right? So that doesn't mean environmental concerns are not important. They are important. You just got to ask yourself, what if you were in that situation? Why would you go to an environmental group if your immigration status is under fire, or you don't know if EPD or the sheriff is going to deport your mom or your dad, right? So, I mean, I would just ask you to really think about that, right? Now, in terms of Bernie supporting, I mean, I'm a proud supporter of Bernie Sanders. I mean, I was there at the rally up in South Eugene. I spoke at that. No, I did not. No, I did not. I did not endorse Hillary Clinton. It's on video. There we go.
All right. Hey, folks. How's it going today? My name is Jason Gonzales. I'm the Forest and Watershed Campaign Organizer for Oregon Wild, and I'm going to help us get back on schedule and tell you a very small amount of what I had planned to today. So if you want to know more information about Oregon Wild, right now my son's helping it find its way around the table. We've got a clipboard with our email list on it. Help that move around the tables. Make sure you sign up for more information. And the one thing I'm going to tell you specifically about, Oregon Wild works on a lot of different issues. We are a statewide nonprofit that's been working in Oregon. We started in Eugene, but we've been working in Oregon as a statewide nonprofit, mostly on wilderness designation advocacy for about 45 years. But these days we work on a lot more than just wilderness. We work on protecting public lands of all types. We work on defending your drinking water sources, your endangered species as they reintroduce throughout the state. And now, for the last couple of years, what I've been doing is we also work on state forest policy. So when we talk about folks that are out there fighting for their water, I'm proud to be wearing a shirt today that a local organization from the coast made in solidarity last year with the No DAPL movement that we have up here on these banners, because just like everywhere else in Oregon, what people are so often fighting for is their very own clean drinking water. We have no LNG pipeline fights up and down the coastline fighting for their drinking water and healthy forests. We have communities all over the coast, every single small community on the coast. I'm proud to spend a lot of time in the town of Manzanita, where we heard Annie was from, where this group is from, where they're out there fighting because they're literally losing their access to clean drinking water right here in Oregon. And we're working really hard to change that. And one of the things that we do, and this is what I want to tell everybody here about, because this is the kind of crowd that really needs to hear about it, is we run actual activist workshops and trainings. We run basic democracy tools workshops. And if you're really interested in that kind of stuff, I want you to come over to our table, and I have a different sign-up sheet so that we're not bugging you if you just want to get our basic information, because we're going to let you know when we have those workshops. And the next one that we have is this Thursday night right here in Eugene. We've got information about it on the table. And that's going to be about writing letters to the editor, op-eds, and other social media tools that you can use in order to spread the word for whatever it is you're working on. We do these workshops once a month. They vary about things like that, social media skills to lobbying skills, to how to get more directly involved with your local politicians and how to get involved in the processes that are controlling our natural resources and everything like that. And it changes every single month. You don't have to come to every one. We let you know what it is. You come hang out at a bar, have some beer and food with us. We try to get you to take a little more action and go beyond just talking about the problems to taking action on those problems. We get something out of it because we teach you those skills in the context of our campaigns. So I can teach you basic democracy skills in the way that I use them to fight for clean drinking water out in Western Lane County, where I live, amongst the clear cuts and aerial spray. But you might be able to use those skills to fight for basic immigration rights here in Oregon, in Eugene, or to get involved in local democracy movements wherever you live. So I want you to come over there and get signed up for that. I'm not going to be here for really long. This event's actually longer than I realized, so I won't be here till the very end. But make sure the clipboard that's coming around to get signed up, and look for us at www.oregonwild.org. And next, for the last little portion of I'm not going to take questions, come to the table if you have any. But next for my portion of my minutes, I'm going to introduce my son, Oliver Gonzales, who's going to talk about something that he cares about a lot and that Oregon Wild works on. My family's been working on this issue for almost 10 years now, since my children were babies. We've been working on it since long before it was a major issue in state politics, and I'm proud that our family was a part in making it one. And I want to let you folks know you're going to hear about the Elliott State Forest. And if that's something you know and care about and you've never had the opportunity to see that place or be there before, Oregon Wild is leading a public hike down there this weekend on Saturday, a week from today. It's open to the public. We normally really push these hikes on our members that are our paying membership members, but our hikes are open to the public. And if you get signed up on our email list, you'll be able to find it. But you can also just find it at www.oregonwild.org. And now Ollie's going to come up and tell you about the Elliott.
Hi, I'm Oliver. I'm going to give you a short update on the Elliott. We are super happy to be celebrating last month's great news that the Elliott State Forest will stay public. But it's important for everyone to know that the fight to save what is inside the Elliott continues. The old growth, beautiful rivers, and endangered wildlife are still threatened by greedy corporations. It is great news that the Elliott won't be sold, but now we are right back to where we started many years ago when my sister and I were just babies and started fighting for this amazing forest. My family won't stop working to defend this special place in Oregon, and we need you to keep fighting too. So come to our table, talk to us about any questions, and get signed up for Oregon Wild's email list, and we will keep you up to date on how you can keep helping us and all the other awesome folks who continue working for clean water, carbon storage, and a healthy wild Elliott State Forest.
Hi everyone, my name is Jen McKinney. I am here from the Eugene DSA. So the DSA is a new chapter in Eugene. We actually just got our final approval, so we're an official chapter now. It's been a long road, thank you. But DSA is not a new organization. They've been around for quite some time. We are democratic socialists. Our movement was grandfathered, you could say, by Eugene Debs, who was an early Union railroad leader in the 1900s. It primarily came out of the Midwest, which is where I'm from originally. I come from a Union family. I come from Iowa. So I've participated in politics for many, many years. So, as a lot of people have had this happen to them, I was deeply affected by the election. It really bothered, just totally shook my world. So I wanted to get involved, and I did some research. I looked at my own political ideology, and I found DSA. And after having worked with the Democratic Party since, I guess my first campaign would have been in '96, a while back, I've never felt so welcomed by a political organization. DSA is not a political party, but DSA is a political organization. So while we don't run a lot of our own candidates, we try to do that locally more, we exist to push candidates further to the left and espousing our political ideology of equality and justice for everyone. Some of DSA's primary goals are to decrease influence of money in politics, to empower ordinary people in workplaces and economy, and to restructure gender and cultural relationships to be more equitable. And I found that to be the case when I joined the DSA. I felt that my voice hadn't really been heard in the Democratic Party. There wasn't as much space for women in the Democratic Party, but I am welcomed with open arms in DSA. I did bring some handbills along. There are a multitude of working groups within DSA. The Feminist Working Group, for instance, does a really great job of providing information and activities for all kinds of people to learn about socialist feminism. Some of the things that we're doing here sure, thank you. So some of what we've been working on in the Eugene DSA, since we are kind of a new chapter and it's Unfortunate that Phil left because our biggest campaign so far has been to work with the budget for LCC. We led a very strong and sudden campaign to hold our elected officials more accountable and to provide transparency, to push to provide transparency to everyone. We wanted that budget to be equitable to students, to faculty, to staff. We wanted to make sure that everyone's voice was heard in that budget process. Unfortunately, as Phil alluded to, the budget that we were hoping for did not pass. But we were able to shed some light on what's happening at Lane Community College, some of the issues that we need to overcome at Lane, and what we can do moving forward for next year. So I do call that campaign a big success. The next thing we're working on is since that budget didn't pass, we've moved to the state level at the corporate activity tax. That proposal has been moving right along. We have met with legislators on lobby days. We've attended rallies. We have worked hard to push our elected officials, and that's a lot of what Eugene DSA is about. We are forming working groups within our chapter. So we have working groups available for feminists, for people who are interested in action, getting out on the streets, for immigrant rights issues, working with other organizations. And I'm looking to Matthew to help me with another working group that we have. Anti-racism working group, and a whole host of other things that we've been looking at as a group. So as the name implies, we are democratic socialists. We do identify strongly in the socialist tradition, and we do push anyone that we endorse to stand by those principles. Though we may not always we may endorse candidates as Democrats, we do expect them to hold our same value system. So we did endorse someone like Matt Keating for the LCC Board of Education, and he was the lone no vote on the budget. So I'm really proud of Matt for that work. Our next meeting is tomorrow from 6 to 8 p.m. at the GTFF offices. That's on East 13th between Patterson and Alder. We meet every other week, and I hope to see anyone there, and I can answer any questions that people might have. Okay, great. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope to see you all again. Thank you.
You know, that's easier. There we go. Hey, thank you. I want to especially thank Annie for inviting me here and James for making the arrangements. Thank you, Annie. Annie and I met recently at the Rural Organizing Project Caucus, where we were working on issues related to immigration, environment, and justice. And I'm really proud to say that when it comes to being a justice warrior, that's exactly what Beyond Toxics is. We are the state's oldest environmental justice group. And we work by taking grassroots issues, communities, neighbors, groups bring us their problems, and we brainstorm about solutions, and then we take those plans straight up to the state legislature and get things done. I like action. I don't like sitting around. Not that any of you are. That's why I'm here. So how many of you heard about the aerial spray incident down in Gold Beach, Southern Oregon? Not many? Well, some. Yeah, where a whole community was sprayed. More than 40 people were sickened and complained, but no one was helping them until we went down there using good science and grassroots organizing to take that issue all the way up to the state legislature and get some legislation passed that we are still working on. Yeah, we're not giving up. That's what it means to be a justice warrior. And so we had legislation this year, although it didn't pass. We'll be back at it again. And Jason back there from Oregon Wild, our two organizations are working on a statewide aerial spray ban. so that all communities are treated equally to have their water clean and their air safe and their property unaffected by these very noxious, hazardous, and poisonous pesticides. When it came to clean air, we've had communities come to us, starting here in Eugene, with air quality problems from industry. And we held the first Oregon Environmental Justice Bus Tour in West Eugene, which has gone a long way to changing policies throughout our state when it comes to land use planning to take into account vulnerable communities whose air is polluted and whose water is polluted. So we'll continue on that vein as well. But it was Beyond Toxics who got Governor Kate Brown to declare that the efforts now being made to overhaul our air quality regulations will be based on environmental justice, meaning that vulnerable communities will be the ones whose needs will be met by these regulations. So, yeah. So I won't take up more of your time. You've been really dedicated to this event where we're sharing our ideas and learning from each other. I want to invite you to some events this summer. We have our membership appreciation party on July 12th. We have our annual fundraising event Be Jazzy on August 3rd. And again, when beekeepers came to us about losing their hives, we took it to the top. And with the Oregon Pollinator Protection Act. So we'll be working on that some more as well. So we need everyone's support, and we're here to support you as well. So check our website out. We have lots of events this summer, hikes and bee counts, and a series of forestry tours, so you can see what a well-managed, environmentally sound and sensitive working forest looks like. So I'll just be hanging out, and if you'd like to sign up for any of those things, let me know. And again, Grassroots Impacts, what a great idea. Thank you.
Great. Hello, howdy everyone. Thank you to Our Revolution for hosting this event today. Grassroots Impact. My name's Zach Mulholland. I'm a volunteer with 350 Eugene. We are working to preserve a safe and sustainable climate for our kids and our great-grandkids. And we're trying to do that in a way that we work with cross-sectional, intersectional groups and work with labor and environmental justice groups to make sure that we're not just not hurting folks that are low-income and communities of color, but we're actually helping folks transition into the new green economy, and that we're all moving there together towards the vision that we want to together. So we focus here locally on what we can do to have an impact as the city of Eugene and as a state to address the issue of global warming and to reduce emissions in line with what we need to preserve a safe and stable climate for our kids. And we do that through a number of different campaigns. So I help primarily with a campaign to put a cap on greenhouse gas emissions at the state level. We've been trying to pass a climate bill called the Clean Energy Jobs Bill. It's House Bill 2135. If you want to talk to your legislator about it, we're hitting the end of session, but your support is definitely appreciated. Please let your legislators know if that's something that you care about. We actually have a petition right over here on a clipboard that's going to start getting passed around, that if you want to tell your legislator that this is an issue that you care about, putting a cap on Oregon's greenhouse gas emissions and investing funds in low-income and rural communities to make sure that we can transition to that new economy together. This is a great way to do that. We've been working with a number of different organizations. Renew Oregon is kind of the hub group in the state, helping a lot of local groups coordinate this. But the 350 chapters in the state, as well as a lot of other local grassroots groups, labor groups, unions, the nurses union, for instance, also a lot of community of color-based organizations. So there's the Coalition of Communities of Color out of Portland that works with Apano and Verde. A number of groups there, and just this last week the NAACP signed on in support, so they're also going to be supporting the Clean Energy Jobs Bill going into the future, and I hope that everyone in this room will be supportive as well. We're very lucky in that we have local legislators that are very much in support on this issue, but they still need to hear from us and be encouraged to continue to be leaders on this issue. Some of the other campaigns that we're working on is the No LNG campaign, trying to stop the Jordan Cove natural gas export terminal in Coos Bay. These are some little yellow sheets right here that are getting passed around that have more information on some of the actions that you can take about that project. There's a number of hearings that are going to be coming up for the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, where they're going to be trying to greenlight this project, and we need as many folks to comment as possible. So please take one of those, check out the ways to comment, and there's a number of local events that you can check out for information, more information about that project. Some of the other things that we've been working on, we try and support the work of our Children's Trust in their federal lawsuit against the federal government, suing on behalf of 21 young people to secure a safe and stable future. You can look at some of the stories about some of the young people are on these placards back here that are suing the federal government. They just had a hearing in their case earlier this week, and they're set for another hearing this December and hopefully a trial in the spring, which is, as they're calling, the trial of the millennium, trying to get our federal government to finally act in reducing emissions in line with what we need to stay below 2C and return below 1C temperature increase by the end of the century. Some of the other things we're working on here in Eugene, we have the Climate Recovery Ordinance that was passed 2 years ago. This locks Eugene into meeting reductions in line with the best science. Right now, there's a lot of work to be done to make sure that we actually get the city to implement the policies to help us reach these really ambitious goals that we've set. And we're looking forward to this fall. The city is going to be starting a process to update its Climate Energy Action Plan. And I encourage anyone, please, if you sign that petition, you'll get on our email list and plug into that when there's opportunities to plug into that work. And lastly, we also have folks that are working on divestment, trying to get the city to divest from U.S. Bank that's been funding the Dakota Access Pipeline, and to make it so that we're no longer investing in corporations that are investing in things that the city disagrees with morally. And then last, the city recently passed an oil train resolution, so just doing everything we can to stop export projects whenever and wherever that they pop up, and passing legislation to make it so that we're changing the rules of the game so that we can eventually, all these projects will be dead on arrival. So that's all the many things that we're working on, and look forward to your questions. And yeah, we got two. We'll do one in here. I'm glad to hear that. We've been getting a lot of support from the nurses unions and others that really care about public health, because they recognize that climate change is an issue that affects all other issues, from food security to public health and many more. So, yes?
Hey, just tell me the high points on this bill that you're advocating for carbon cap.
Yeah.
And why don't you just have a big tax on carbon? Thank you.
Sure. So a couple reasons. First, Oregon, one reason that unfortunately a tax is not a super viable option for Oregon is we actually require a 3/5 supermajority in order to pass tax increases. That makes it much harder to pass a carbon tax. In addition, a cap on greenhouse gas emissions that goes down over time. Some of the research suggests that you can actually achieve greater reductions at a lower cost using that type of a program. It's also more sustainable at the ballot. It's been shown that the public supports a cap over a tax by a decent margin. And in California, when they passed a cap down there and the fossil fuel industry tried to repeal it at the ballot, that repeal got defeated 60% to 40%. So sustained by a pretty wide margin. I think overarching the program, it would set this cap that goes down over time. The biggest polluters in the state, about 100 companies, would have to buy allowances to pollute, and as the pool shrinks and the price goes up, many of them would choose to instead reduce their emissions. And then we're going to take the money that's raised from those big polluters and we're going to reinvest that in energy efficiency and green energy, with a special focus in low-income communities, communities of color, and rural communities, so that everybody's moving forward together. We're not leaving anybody behind. So. All right. Well, that's it for me.
Thanks, Zach. So before I finish up, I want to give our tablers a chance to come to the mic for a minute and just give whatever they want to talk about for a minute or two. We've got Lou Sininger from Healthcare for All Oregon, Alan Zundell with the Green Party, Nicholas Engel with Our Revolution Lane County, and I think that was it. I think we've heard from all the other tablers. If they haven't, let me know while these guys are talking, and we'll get you a minute. Thanks.
Thank you, James, for having us here. This is a very good gathering. But I just want to talk to you about violence for a minute. I think it's violent to jail somebody for being homeless. I think it's violent to take away the environment for our grandchildren. Can you help me out here? What else is violent? Yeah. Yeah, really. I think it's violent to not allow people to be cared for, not give them health care. Why would anyone take away health care from a person? Why would they just throw them into the street, let them go broke? Why would they deport? I think that's violent, to deport mothers and children away from their families and their jobs in America. That's violence. So let's work together and stop the violence. You can join us at Healthcare for All this July 5th for a change. We usually have our meetings the first of every Tuesday, right? Of every month at 7 o'clock at the First United Methodist Church. All right? You can come and join us, get health care for everybody. Our plan is to put it on the ballot in 2020, single-payer health care for all of us here in Oregon. We pay our taxes, we get health care, okay? We'll also be at the Oregon Country Fair on the front porch at 2:30 that Friday, and we'll have a booth at the community village. So come see us. Thank God we're all working together.
Hi, I'm Alan Zundell, co-chair of the State Coordinating Committee of the Pacific Green Party, and I'm kind of tall. You already heard from a couple of our members much earlier this afternoon, so I'm going to be very brief. First thing I'm going to say is that the progressive movement is fragmented primarily because of our voting system. When you find yourself torn between options for action, should I be doing issue activism? Should I be trying to reform the Democratic Party? Should I go with the third party, the Green Party, or a different party? The reason is that our voting system forces you into making those kind of choices. We need to have a voting system that eliminates or at least minimizes the spoiler problem so you can vote for who you really want to vote for. There are other voting systems we could implement, like proportional representation or ranked choice voting or even something else. So you should be including that on your list of issues to work for. But there's a problem, an obstacle, that's even bigger than the voting system, bigger than money in politics and all the rest of the things that I've heard about today, and that is our own acceptance of people who tell us what is or isn't possible, what is or isn't practical. When you limit yourself to what other people tell you is possible, you are betraying your own commitment to what you believe in, okay? So the biggest obstacle is psychological, overcoming what people tell you you cannot achieve. We've listened to that for too long, and it stopped us from even trying. All of us have been in that position in our life. You got to overcome that and face that squarely. The biggest resource we have is our own ability to envision a better future, to commit ourselves to working for it, and to keep forging forward no matter how many obstacles we face along the way. Just keep going.
Hi, good afternoon, good evening, friends and relatives, brothers and sisters, elders and betters. I'm here to represent Our Revolution Lane County, and we are so glad to see so many of you out here and so many different people from around Eugene and around different interests coming together to work on progressive issues so that our voice is amplified, and that's great. But remember also, we had something like, I think, 46% turnout in the presidential election. There's half the people out there aren't hearing or listening. We need to reach out to them. We need to bring more people into our groups. We need to be more inclusive, and we need to be more offering of ourselves to others. And I'd like to, work with all the other groups here and other ones that may not have been able to make it to help coordinate that effort and unify our voices so that we're spending all of our money working together and combining our forces and getting ahead faster and quicker. Thank you so much for coming. Have a wonderful time. Here's James Barber, incidentally, the first president and co-founder of Our Revolution Lane County. Thank you so much.
Thanks. So I don't know. It looks like Carrie left. Is Carrie Thompson still here? So one of the things that Our Revolution Lane County has been working on is trying to do what Grassroots IMPACT is doing at the state level, and that's bring together progressive groups across this city, right, across Lane County. And what Carrie Thompson does is he's president of the Helios Network. Has anybody heard of the Helios Network? Hey, you guys most of you guys know about this. That's great. So the Helios Network, for those who don't know, they kind of started that a long time ago. They realized that there was about 300 different groups around this city, and none of them know about each other, and they've been trying to connect them. So one of the things that they do, besides try to connect the groups, though, is they have a grant matching program. So if your groups don't know about this yet, you need to check it out. It's the Helios Network. They offer matching grants of, I think, $500. So if you put on your website or you put on their website or however they work it out, they will match up to $500 in donations that your group gets from whatever source. So it's a way to make your dollars go farther for your progressive group. So it's really neat. It's too bad he had to take off before he could mention that. So Helios. Just like it sounds, yeah. Okay, so I want to finish up. First, I want to thank you all for coming. I really, really appreciate getting activists together. I just love being with you guys. The ideas that come out, to hear about the things that we're working on, it's refreshing. And it's invigorating. And that was the whole point of this. That's why we spent this wonderful day in this enclosure listening to people talk instead of being out, right? Thanks, Christy. Because it's great. It really feels good to hear about all the work that everybody's doing. Everybody has a passion, right? When I was chair of Our Revolution Lane County, we would get people come in and they would say, why aren't you working on this? Why aren't you working on that? You should be working on this. Well, that's not where a passion is at, right? We need people to work on what their passion is. They're going to be the champion of whatever is at the top of their priority list. And if we try and change that because we tell them this other thing is more important, that just doesn't work. What will work is if we all realize what everybody's passions are and what we're working on here, and we build these relationships so that when they need help, we can come together and help on those issues at that time that's needed. So we're all out here, and when we need to come together, we can come together because we have those relationships built. Right? And we're going to come together on this issue. And then we're going to go back and we're going to work. And then we're going to come together on this other issue. And that's how we're going to make progress. So one of the things, we've heard a lot of talk today about candidates and elections. And it hit me a while back, and I'm sure a lot of you are aware of this, but we can fight and we can go and we can be advocates on issue after issue and protest and do all of those things that are real and necessary to change the minds of the politicians that the society has elected. Or we can become them. She's heard me say this. We can become them. So that was why I'm running for Lane County Commissioner, East Lane County, District 5. And I hope that you guys will help, if you're not going to run yourself, help get other people involved to run, because it's so much easier if we don't have to continue to fight and bump up against a brick wall of somebody that just doesn't care about our issues, right? So I didn't come up here to talk about my campaign, though. I came up here to talk about economic justice. Economic justice is really important to me. I care about environmental justice and racial justice and social justice, and they kind of all overlap. Most of the issues overlap on multiple justices, but economic is, to me, in my mind, this is my passion, I see it as the root of a lot of those issues. And campaign finance is a big deal when it comes to that. But it all stems from a starting point. And this country, when we really took off, the heyday of this country was back in the 1950s, right? The 50s and 60s, back when we built all of the wonderful infrastructure that we have today, the highways. Now that was done when we had a 93% tax rate on the wealthy, right? We're trying to maintain all of that infrastructure with a 30% tax rate, and it just doesn't work. When our federal tax rate, the federal income tax rate, when it collects enough money from the wealthy, it's able to spread that money out across this country. It kind of evens the playing field. And that money can go to the poorer communities. Those are the monies that helped fund our schools and our roads and our bridges and our tunnels and all of the other infrastructure that we need to function as a free society. One of the biggest things that I like to talk about when talking about infrastructure is freedom of movement. Freedom of movement is so important for our society. To be able to go where you want, when you want, to be able to have access to the goods that you need, right? To be able to travel, to share your ideas. Whatever it takes, we need freedom of movement. Thanks, Sage. So we're trying to maintain this infrastructure with a 30% tax rate. So what happens? The tax rates in the federal level, they get cut, and they get cut, and they get cut for the wealthy. And our localities, our local municipalities can't keep up. So they have to raise whatever taxes they can at the local level. Sales taxes, which are very regressive, they hit the poor and the working class the most. We've got property taxes, which you can only tax so much, but everybody ends up paying on that as well, right? You're with rents. Gas taxes. Gas tax, again, is regressive because it hits the poor people the most. Anytime it goes up a little bit, they're the ones struggling. It's not the wealthy who got their income tax rate dropped, right? It's the poor people trying to get to work just to survive. So it really, really makes a big difference what we see happen at the federal level. Permit fees, too, at the local level. Permit fees. The reason they're so high these days is because the counties, they don't get enough federal funds. The money that the wealthy used to pay in to help this society function has not kept up. And so everything at the local level has had to be raised. That hurts all of us. It hurts the opportunity to be able to get universal health care. It hurts. A lot of places are looking at toll roads as an answer. Yeah, boo. Quick aside, I don't like the idea of toll roads. One, freedom of movement, it hurts that. Two, it can just divert traffic to other areas that aren't intended to have the type of traffic that it needs. There's certain areas that it works good, but basically, we all pay for it. Even if you're not driving on that road, maybe the goods you're trying to buy have to travel that road, you know? We need to look at getting back to that higher federal income tax. When we had that 93% tax, they didn't pay 93%. What they did was they actually utilized the deductions that were allowed. So you get deductions. Businesses get deductions for wages that they pay their employees and for equipment that they buy. So what happened when we had that 93% tax? They gave them money to their employees instead of hoarding it themselves, right? They didn't try and keep all of that extra money for a meager 7%. They decided to reinvest it in their businesses and expand and pay their employees more and provide better benefits. Those are all things that have not kept up over the last 50, 60, 70 years. And so we're struggling today. We're in a rental crisis. In Portland, for sure, we're quickly on the heels here in Eugene because wages haven't kept up, right? Right now, we're in a fight between the landlords and the tenants when the landlords aren't the ones that own the businesses that are not paying the employees enough so that they can afford a place to live at a regular rate, right? And so it forces us to have a different conversation than we should be having. So we're having a conversation about how to control rent when that's just a symptom. That's just a symptom of the problem. So there's a lot of symptoms to economic justice. And this isn't going to stay up anymore. There's a lot of symptoms to it. And we're dealing with it in a lot of the fights that we're having. So I'm going to leave you guys with this. I just wanted everybody to be aware of some of the history of what has led to a lot of the problems that we have here today. We're not going to solve those issues today. We may not even agree on all of the problems, but the symptoms are there, and that's what we're fighting against. We're fighting against all of these symptoms. So I'll leave you with that. We really need to focus on making the wealthy pay their fair share, right? A lot of people point to a flat tax. Flat tax is not, it's a regressive tax for a number of reasons, but basically what that will allow the wealthy to do who can already save because they make more than they need to live, the inequality just continues to grow. So the only way to start battling the income inequality that we're dealing with today is to start making them pay their fair share. And they already pay most of the taxes. But you know what? They should. They should, because they have it easy, right? I mean, they work hard for their money, but also we work hard for their money, right? It reminds me of a joke. An employee sees his boss's really nice new car and he says, "Wow, that is gorgeous." And the boss says, "Yeah, and you know what? If you work really hard and you work overtime and you try really hard, I'm going to be able to buy another one of those next year." So I'm going to leave you with that. I really appreciate all of you coming out here. One last comment. When it comes to elections and candidates, elect the people that are fighting for the issues you care about. That is how we're going to change this and make progress. Thank you all for coming out.